Hello? Is the sound working? Uh-oh. Hello, is the sound working? There we go. Sorry, we've been having internet issues. And fair warning, the jets are flying very low today, so we may pick those up too. I'll do my best. Hopefully we won't. Hello, everyone. Peachy, great to see you. You gave me a scare earlier in the week, but that's okay. It was fun. Lakeisha, good to see you. And is that Emery's? Good to see you. Hey, Dustin, man. Good to see you too. And blessings right back to you. Oh, no, it's okay. It's not really your fault. It's, we need better words to describe what you described, because whether it's positive or negative, we really only have the one word, and my brain automatically goes, oh, shit, that's a negative. But you explained it. It's all good. That's why we ask questions. Pete, you would have to give me permission to tell. Well, hopefully I have a bunch of answers for those questions. There has been a time or two where y'all have thrown something at me and I've been just like, I don't know. Okay, well, what happened was the video I released this week on tools of dragon magic, which I'm actually going to talk a little bit on tonight by request of somebody. And I showed my staff. And my staff, I know it's had an energetic effect on people if they were in the room with it, and especially if they held it. But a lot of you all were commenting on being able to feel its energy through the video. And in the case of Peachy, it triggered to me, it's an emotional culling or cleansing or purging, but she referred to it as a panic attack, which scared me. But she informed me that it was, basically she had an emotional upwelling and it ended in a positive way. So it was a healing more than anything. You know what, Emrys? That's a good question. And it's one that's been popping up a lot this week since I released the video. And generally speaking, you don't need them. I have never once had a dragon tell me to go get a dagger or a sword. Now, starting from Conway's tradition and the fact that I did originally start my magical practice in Wicca, I did have an athame, and actually, martial arts and sword fighting was something I always did, so there was plenty of swords lying around the house for me to use. And every time I did not get really good ritual results with either the athame or the sword, so I was always trying different swords and athames and all kinds of stuff. And eventually, I actually approached the dragons about it, and it was when I read through Mystical Dragon Magic, Conway's second book, because in the first book, she talks about you have to have all this big list. And by book 2, the list disappears. There is no list. So that's when they informed me that you don't need these tools to practice the basics of dragon magic. That said, in some of the higher areas of dragon magic, some form of tool to use as an anchor for energy is required, and that's where the staff, cane, and wand concept comes from, because those three things naturally have an association in our mind as a support, an anchor, and a director of energy. Very few people see a sword as an anchor. If you know anything about sword fighting, it is not an anchor. That's very bad for your blade. And there are a few people who they see daggers as a minor anchor, but it's really bad for the blade. So moving away to something your brain always associates as something physical, sturdy, and an anchor is kind of what they were going to on that. Now, that said, those tools do still have uses in certain practices. Specifically, which is what I'm wanting to do a video on, is Draconic Wicca. Because Draconic Wicca and Dragon Magic are two very different things. And in that case, in Wicca, the Athame serves many functions and holds many places, and you should still have it because it's a Wiccan practice. But as far as Dragon Magic by itself, they're not necessary. In fact, if you don't go into the higher echelons of Dragon Magic, you could get away with no tools pretty easy. Man, Dustin, that staff got you good, didn't it? Yeah, I had a great spring equinox. The equinoxes and the solstice are really the only times I do, I guess you could say, celebratory rituals with the dragons, because most holidays they don't care about. They're more focused on the holidays that, well, if you think about it, they're the energetic balance of the year. So those four. Evening, Black Tower. Good to see you. Which they pointed out I need to lean on my co-magician, my guardian dragon, and my staff more to get this ritual I've been beating my head against the wall done. And yeah, the co-magician was making fun of me. Because he's like, you're overlooking the simple solution. And I was like, how am I overlooking it? He's like, then he started going, well, you don't see it. It's not clear to you. You've looked at this many angles and still haven't seen the solution. He's like, overlooking sounds pretty self-explanatory to me. And I was just looking at him like, you're really going to do that, aren't you? Well, it's good to see you. Yeah, there's no doubt. If you use that to make your dragon staff in Dragon Magic, that's definitely going to add some extra juice to it and make it a very unique item for sure. Yeah, well, the co-magician was picking on me. They were just sitting back and laughing, which is pretty standard. He gives me lip, I give him lip, and they just laugh at the both of us. But that said, I was able to get the 9 evocations fully done and start working into that next step, which ironically, there's a 10th dragon that I ended up working with in that next step. And that's been an interesting experience. What wood would I recommend? Me personally, I prefer sturdy woods that will last a long time. And the reason for that is you put a lot of work into crafting that staff, okay? So, like I said in the tools video, and I cover it in the class too, if you, let's say something happens to my staff and I have to craft a brand new one, start to finish, instead of working as I go through Dragon Magic, one step by step and slowly building it as I do, all I'm doing is crafting a staff. It would take me at least a year working rituals every month, if not daily, to reproduce my staff. So for me, durability is number one when it comes to what wood am I selecting. Beyond that, you really should just kind of follow your own preferences, because the dragons, they're not fond of one wood over another. In fact, I've seen them get giddy over all kinds of different woods for different reasons. Oak and ash are both great woods. I considered ash myself. Oak, me and oak never got along. Everybody has such great luck with durability of oak. But every walking stick I've ever had that was oak, it betrayed me. At work, bad times too. So I was leaning toward ash, but I was having a lot of trouble finding it. And I ended up going with waxwood, which is a really durable, hard style wood, but it still has some of the flexibility that you would expect from a softwood. It's a very interesting wood. They use it in spear shafts and martial arts weapons a lot. So I knew that it could take a beating, and that's what I went with. Because, again, I'm just trying not to break the thing. That was my first goal. Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I do know a lot of people who choose driftwood. Driftwood makes a pretty good staff if you can find a good piece of it. Because I don't know, there's something about driftwood. It actually gets pretty solid, especially if it dries well enough without rotting. So if you can find a good piece of driftwood, that's a good way to go. I actually know somebody made a staff out of metal. He wanted a full-on metal staff, and it works great. The energy in it's awesome. It's not very practical. You can't really take it anywhere. And if you're out in the woods doing anything, at least if you live around here, you run the risk of being a lightning rod. I get shocked enough, and I've been indirectly hit by lightning twice, so I'm not carrying a metal stick. I'm just superstitious that way. Let's see. Now, somebody told me waxwood is somehow related to the ash tree. I've not really able to find any botany on that, but that may be true. I don't know. I just know it grows like a weed, and it's actually considered invasive in America. It's been banned in California because it grows too quickly. So it also, if you're wanting a wood that's renewable resource, if that's your bag, it's also good for that. But find what you like. I know one person has a rattan staff. One young lady I know, she actually has this gorgeous black bamboo staff. Her parents have a black bamboo like plants in their garden, and they take real good care of them. They grow up pretty good size, and she got one of those, a big shaft of that out of the garden, and it seems to be as durable as any other bamboo I've encountered, which is pretty durable. But black bamboo is just gorgeous. So she made a staff out of that. But you can use anything, because like what I was wanting to talk about, someone asked me about canes because I really didn't touch on them much. Because, well, I said they're basically, a short staff, which they are. And the reason I say you can use anything is this is actually what I use for my cane. And this is actually a type of it's plastic of some kind. It's a durable plastic. But it's kind of the same stuff that they used to make sparring gear out of. It's that sort of plastic. And yeah, this works just fine. I've never had any issues of using a material like this. I do not know if they make staffs out of this. And this particular cane was a gift to me from a friend. But I would say if you get a cane, get one that's comfortable and that you can actually lean on and put your weight on. So that is kind of one thing. And I have noticed multi-piece canes don't really work as well because the energy can't flow through them as easily. So you kind of want to avoid sword canes, or I've seen canes that twist and you take them apart and they've got storage compartments. You want to avoid those. You want to get something that's pretty solid, or at least mostly solid. I could see cherry for working with earth dragons. I really could. Though I know oak actually works really good with them too, as does hickory. I'm not sure about its durability, but they do kind of like working with that wood. Cypress is a good wood. Honestly, you can decorate your staff any way you want. Emery's, there's nothing wrong with that. I know people have metal wrapping, leather wrappings. I know one person that always makes sure there's a metal cap on their staff to prevent splitting because they use it a lot out in the wilds. And as far as natural materials, you don't really have to worry if it's natural or not, because to a dragon, everything comes from the same source. Even if man took the different things and put it together through manufacturing, to a dragon, that's just alchemy. So this plastic staff, a dragon will view as a natural material. But yeah, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with it. And they do have a lot of uses. And you can actually ground out or move energy through them. I know people use different gems with different enchantments they inlay into their staffs. A practitioner's staff, wand, or cane in dragon magic should be as unique as they are. Me, I don't like a lot of doodads. And I go for functionality and durability. I don't want something I have to be gentle with. So you're not going to find a lot of crystals and stuff and intricate workings on the stuff I craft, because I need to be able to just shove it down in a bag or throw it in the car, or even catch myself on a tree with it if I'm hiking. So it will take a beating, but that's who I am. Now, I know people who have extremely intricate, I mean, just, you would think they were ceremonial only use staffs. So yeah, you can totally do it. You just gotta, and the thing is, the more you work with your staff will start telling you what it wants. Like my staff, I actually put a weathered wood stain on it, so it had that real deep weathered gray. It didn't stick. It did not stick. So the current pattern you see on it is more or less the combination of what it decided and what I decided. You can get some great staffs from a swamp, Peachy. You really can. Actually, I think Raven has it right now. But I do actually have a it's not a dragon staff, obviously, but I do have a staff that I got from a swamp. I love it. Okay, that's a good question, Julius. Magic itself is a natural energy current that moves through everything. We're actually exposed to it every day. So to just blanketly say magic can drive you mad, that I would say is false. Because if that's the case, existence itself is insane. And the problem where people get in trouble with magic, magic will not seek to harm you. It's our own stupidity and not knowing what we're doing with it. So, for example, in a lot of my videos, and I know definitely here in these live streams, I mentioned why you don't want to just jump in and work with storm dragons or chaos dragons. Because technically speaking, they are going to seek to help you. They're going to seek to help you reach your goals. But their ideal of how to reach your goals and yours could be completely different. And they're going to remove obstacles. So if you have relationships, friends, even your job, or even daily habits that are actually blockages from you attempting to achieve a goal, they're going to try and remove them. So that's really when things go south with magic, because you ask for something and you don't understand magic or what you're working with well enough to understand it might take a pathway you're not ready for. And that's when it gets harsh. And it can get really harsh, especially if you're dealing with mental and emotional healing. See, everybody thinks mental and emotional healing, that's what I want. I got to dive right into that. I need to get me some of that. And it's great, but you really kind of got to work up to it and work through it bit by bit, because if you just try and go one fell swoop and you've never done anything like that, you're going to try and heal a lifetime of emotion and mental stuff in that small period. And well, that's like plugging your little Walkman into the 220 line or straight into the power plant. Not a good idea. So in those cases, it can get dangerous because you're setting things in motion to help you that will help you, but you yourself might not be ready for how much of an intense experience it's going to be. Which is one reason the classes are laid out the way they are, because you work your way through all the different elemental rulers one by one in a way that you're working on things and building yourself up as you go. So that, you know, when you do get around to considering working with storm dragons or chaos dragons, you've done so much healing and stuff already that, yes, it's still going to be a tough experience, but it's going to be something you're at least prepared to handle. You have an understanding on. So that would be the first, definitely. But there are people who come into magic and they do not approach it logically. They do not approach it in a manner where they're really thinking about what is possible, or do they seek to understand how energy works itself, like in the laws of magic, which I did a video on the 28 laws of magic. And because of that, I have seen them dive into magic thinking it works like fantasy magic. And it just helps them further disassociate from reality. But that's not the magic that done it. they already had a pre-existing thing that was disassociated, if that makes sense. Purple Heartwood would be an awesome one. Peachy, I gotta actually say, chaos magic itself is not dangerous. Chaos magic, now, like working with the chaos element or chaos dragons, that's different from chaos magic itself. Chaos magic itself is more of a magical system that's very results driven, and it's free form. It's all about testing. It has a very scientific process to it when you read it, and anything that works for you is okay. So if you're getting magical results and it's working, chaos magic supports it. That's where they get the chaos, because anything goes. They're not actually working with the chaos element. But I would say, yes, the chaos element, if you don't know what you're doing, like I said earlier, can be dangerous, but it can also be one of the most beneficial things to work with if you know how to do it and you're ready for it. I hope that makes sense. Because I've actually seen a lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram where Bugs Bunny's called to one of the quarters. I about laughed my butt off. I honestly don't remember the whole ritual, because when they got to Rickum Wreckum Firecracker, Bugs Bunny, rah, 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 that's it. I spit my coffee out. I was in the floor laughing. And there was no disrespect in that laughter. It was just, I didn't see that one coming. I grew up on Bugs Bunny. That was great. I loved it. Mathis, yeah, all magic can have consequences. Again, it's that you're manipulating things and pathways in the universe to bring change. That change alters pathways to bring that change to you. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons and consider how that might come to you. No problem, Peachy. That's why I'm here, is to try and answer questions and attempt to clear things up. Emery's, no, most of my classes are not free, unfortunately. I do currently have a class on clairvoyance and training your arcane sight to be able to see energy and entities on the school, and that is such an important base skill that is indeed a free class. The YouTube channel, I try to get as much information for beginners out free as I can, but the in-depth classes with all that I have to put into those unfortunately I can't manage to do for free. And well, definitely my one-on-ones I can't do for free. Those are actually the ones that's really expensive, because I have to literally slot out time specifically for them. And then there's also testing and everything. But the online classes, we are working to make them as affordable as humanly possible. For example, the Dragon Magic 101 class that we're shooting for mid-April release, $30. And most people are trying to convince me to charge $100 for it. No, we're not doing $100. $30. That's a good number. People can afford that. It's reasonable. No, it's not actually dangerous to do magic when you're young. In fact, if you pay attention to young children, they're doing magic all the time. If 90% of the time when a kid has an imaginary friend, they're talking to something. It's not imaginary. It may be an ancestor. It may be a fae. Oftentimes, I've actually seen it end up being a dragon. Those kids they have no filters. See, we're born with the arcane senses functioning. We're not detached from our arcane senses at all. We actually have to desensitize ourselves to them as we grow. So it's that when you're being told, no, that's just your imagination, those kinds of things, or you don't talk about it, you're ignoring it because you're afraid people's going to think you're crazy. Those are the kind of things that desensitize us to tapping into those senses. And so when we talk about learning to train that skill, it's more actually tapping back into it. So, and kids, their imagination can shape things in ways that they just innately do magic, because they are so young, they are so just wide open that they just tap into it naturally. Julius, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that the class is helping. That was a tricky one because I looked at that for a while, whether I could attempt to try and do a YouTube thing for that, and it just came down. It would be easier to do a class on the school, put everything in one place, and just make it free. It was too big of a topic to do YouTube, but it was too small that I would actually call it a full course originally. So, yeah. And the other arcane senses, I've been trying to figure out if I can do a class on those, but they're so, I guess they're simpler to learn that the exercises I gave in the arcane senses video on the channel, on the YouTube, should pretty much cover those. Though I am looking at clairaudience or arcane hearing, because out of all of them, the ability to see and hear are the two big ones. So I am kind of weighing whether or not I can get enough training info together to do another free course on that. If I can, we will. If not, we'll just leave it as is. No, Emery's, I'm sorry I can't do them for free. I mean, I really wish I could, but I got to keep the lights on somehow. And my time, because I dump a lot of time into this. You all mean the world to me as the viewers and everything, and I appreciate your support. And it's because of that I have no qualms putting in 18 plus hours days for this stuff, because the people who have reached out and told me how much the YouTube channel or the classes are helping them makes it all worth it. And if anyone ever told you self-employment's great because you don't have to work, they lied to you. Trust me. You put in more hours when you work for yourself. I would say mine are fair. I've never had any issues with them. I mean, as far as when I need to use them magically, I have no issue. I can tap into them pretty much reflexively. And I have managed to develop them all. Even taste, although taste, that's more my co-magician's fault because he's always handing me wine when we're in the astral sanctum. But yeah, I would say they're fair, even good. But that's about as high as I'd go because I have a good, solid functioning on them all. And I would definitely say hearing and sight are the top ones for me. But that's probably because I use those the most. But I'd put them at fair or good. If you haven't noticed, I'm not one to like put myself on a pedestal. Or in some cases, paint a bullseye on me. Kundalini. Well, Kundalini's actually been a fascinating area of research because I encountered a little bit of gnosis that kind of threw me for a loop and kind of scrambled what I thought. And that gnosis was essentially the chakras are not energy bodies as we know them. They're just energetic map of our singular energy body. And when I've learned chakras, they're actually energy centers. They're da-da-da-da. But then I've encountered other magicians who's actually had this same gnosis. And this is kind of where you get the idea of removing your chakras, because you're not removing the energy bodies or the energy centers. You're just removing that map. So it allows you to work with the entirety of your energy body as one thing. Which I think someone on here asked me about one time. And So that's kind of been something I've been looking more into and trying to figure out exactly how it all pieces together. That much said, Kundalini definitely is a energy pattern that it's quite effective. Now, the irony is there is a energy meditation that I teach in my Dragon Magic classes that I've had Kundalini practitioners say they get more energetic oomph out of it than Kundalini. And for me, I kind of see it and Kundalini, they feel kind of the same to me. But the principle's the same. You are still moving two energy currents that are part of the same thing up through your energy body, or in this case, one at a time, chakra to chakra. And then that energy actually explodes out and starts filling you and the area. Which I don't know if that meditation will be in the 102 or the 103 class just yet, but I've always enjoyed working with Kundalini. I've heard a lot of people have had some really bad experiences with it. And all I can figure out is those people are raising energy and tapping into something specific that needs worked on, but they're never grounding the energy out. And they're not working on whatever it is they need to fix. So they have this massive energy in them, and it's all unbalanced. That's when every person who said they had a Kundalini problem, that's always what I've encountered. And the second you either ground out the energy or balance out whatever it is that needs fixing, they're good to go. But it is a very interesting practice. Julius, my arcane senses, do I plan to train them any further? I personally, as a magician and a mage, plan to take my skills as far as I can. So anytime I reach a point where whatever my limits are, I always try to push them to make myself better. I do believe in that old adjective, the only person you compete against is yourself. And every day you should wake up a better person than you was yesterday. So that's one reason I do throw myself into my work so head on. And my wife and many of my friends will even say recklessly, which y'all have heard some of the dumb stuff I've done. So, but yeah, I would say I do intend to train them more. The two that I'm really wanting to push further is actually touch and taste. I want to see how far I can push taste as an arcane sense. And I'm really, really wanting to see how truly far I can push touch. Yeah, if you're having some crazy experiences with Kundalini that you would put in the negative crazy, there's probably a disbalance in that section when you're raising it. Well, no problem. It's not an area I spend too much time with because, like I said, since so many other energy things replicate it, and I've not found anything that it does that I can't get in other methods, I've not spent too much time researching it. Outside researching it enough to help others who, like I said, they have an energy issue that they panic about. Hey, David, no problem. Being late is perfectly fine. Especially for that reason. Oh, what? Okay, you might want to recheck that Reiki instructor's credentials because, I mean, I got my Reiki masters and that just makes no sense. I've never heard someone leaving Reiki down in the dumps. I've heard them leaving with energy highs, but never down in dumps. If you haven't already, David, try to do the ritual of the flames and focus on pulling that energy through your energy centers. It should help cleanse you and give you a pickup. Because that don't sound right at all. No, Peachy, Kundalini can get crazy. It's weird because, like I said, I've seen people who really threw themselves into some crazy energy work, but I've never seen anything that causes as much issues as Kundalini, even though it works in similar ways. So that is one thing that I've always wondered is why does it create more issues than the others if they work so similarly? Yeah, I'm going to have to say that Reiki practitioner did something they shouldn't have done. I've never heard someone leaving a Reiki session like that. So, I may ask a few other Reiki masters I know who practice professionally, and I'll shoot you a message on Facebook, David, just to double check, because I do have my Reiki's masters, but I don't do it as a full-time service, so it's one of those things. I have never heard of that. Well, that's a pretty. Generally speaking, I'm skeptical of anyone with a title like that. That was a jet. Yeah, ascended angelic master. My first question when somebody says I'm ascended is, why are you still working here and using physical money? Just random question. So, you'll find when it comes to people throwing titles around like that, I get real skeptical. There's been way too many con artists that go into the tarot business, the crystal business, the scented oil business, and Reiki has a ton of them also. And they get their little piece of paper, they charge people, and some people try to ignore it because they say they're not doing any harm, and then others, you do have to wonder if they're causing harm. So I don't know this personal practitioner, so I can't say one way or the other, but that title would definitely be a red flag for me. Yeah, Mathis, that's a good description of Kundalini. In fact, I would almost Kundalini and the Clifothic tree, they really work very similar. They just kind of throw you into the deep end and say, sink or swim, your choice. So that's it's not bad, and it can be very quick and progressive and get you to where you're going quickly, but it can be a rough ride. Yeah. Generally, when somebody throws up a title like that, it's always been a red flag for me. And every teacher I've ever had, they kind of say the same thing. It's like that's a red flag. Um, I mean, Peachy's even seen it in New Orleans, I'm sure, because there's two types of readers in New Orleans. There's the one who put on a show. They're there for the tourists, and they got all the bits and bobbles and the woo woo, and it's crazy. And then you got the readers who they have next to nothing, yet they can read in such accuracy that it's astounding. And those are the real deal. So the more toys, bells and whistles and baubles and fancy titles, those are usually the red flags. A good reader don't need that because they can rely on their skill. And when you do a good reading that really touches someone at the core, word's going to get around that you're good. So you don't need all that. No problem, Julius. Come back anytime. We're always happy to answer questions. Well, I mean, you have to make that call for yourself, David. I mean, technically speaking, I'm very close to being an atheist magician because I look at the entities as just entities and friends, not a form of divinity. I don't worship anything. I'm not a spiritual person. It's more of the science of magic for me. If it ain't going to yield results, I don't give a crap. I don't see it as fear mongering just to warn a person, Mathis. I think you're doing a legit thing. I think it's better to tell someone the exacts of what you've experienced so that they understand it before they do something stupid. I mean, that to me is not fear mongering, that's just logic. And that's like telling someone a car cannot harm you. Well, operated correctly and assuming everyone around you operates theirs correctly and assuming the roads are in perfect condition, that's an almost true statement. But there are situations where that car becomes a very harmful thing. It's just logical. I think that's what gets me in trouble so much is I have no problem stepping outside the spiritual side of everything's just hunky dory and pointing out the logic. it's like, well, that's true from a point of view, but if you look at this, so. But now, David, dude, give the Ritual of the Flames a try, and just try to ground yourself out some, because yeah, something sounds like it didn't go right there. And I'm going to talk to a few Reiki masters I know to get third, fourth, and fifth opinions because that just sounds wonky to me. I don't know. But yeah, that's gonna bug me now. Okay. Any other questions? So, as I did say, we are actually making progress on that ritual, which the dragons have confirmed that should be the capstone ritual in the 104 class. So they are actually wanting me to publish that ritual in these classes, which is kind of crazy. Actually, Peachy, yes. Yes, very easy. I'd say 70, if not 90% of magic is about visualization. So the better your visualizations, what the hell? Okay, I have no idea why I did that. And I can't edit that out. Oh well, that's the live stream for you. But since your imagination is where your visualization comes through, yes, magic will come very, very easily to them. Because when you're doing a spell and you're focusing your intent, you're using visualization as that focus point. In fact, a lot of people are starting about. I was like twins. What? They're starting to talk about magical imagination. They're expecting you to see it outwardly in the room with you at all times. If it's a mental image, they don't think it's legit. But that's exactly what it is. If it's in your mental mind eye, in your imagination, you're doing it. And for those who have been asking if I plan to do a book, because I know someone in, I think it was Sunday's chat, was asking me about it and encouraging me. And ironically, I got a few comments this week in the channel. We are looking at a few possibilities. Now, whether or not the classes, like the online classes, will ever be translated into a book or a series of books, I don't know. The logistics of that would be tricky. And that one's in the air and very uncertain. Now, what I do want to do is I do want to actually publish a grimoire of dragons, their sigils, what they're good at, how to work with them, kind of go into detail with each of them. And I got like 60 dragons that I want to include already in such a book. So it would kind of be like an encyclopedia of dragons and, you know, their sigils. And one thing that's been on my mind for, I'd say, 2 or 3 years minimum is to do a book focusing on a long-term path working with each of the 9 draconic elements, the rulers, and the dragons that work in that element. So a whole book dedicated to a real deep dive kind of thing. And so once we get some of the classes up and running, those are potentials. And depending on how big the path working is, it'll depend on whether it's just one book per element or if we couple up certain elements together. Hey, Soap Bubbles. You have no idea how much I had to resist the urge to go, Bubbles! My nephew has that burned into my head. Best ways to ground. My favorite ways to ground are actually using breathing to do it, or even the visualization of a root system going in and out of you. So you're pulling neutral energy in while the excess energy is going out. Those are my favorites because you can do them anywhere, anytime. And my other favorite way to ground and do a cleansing is in the shower. I love water grounding. There's just something great about water pouring over you and pulling the excess energy and negativity away and literally down the drain. But you can't do that everywhere. So, you know. But Yeah, I would say the breathing and the rooting are my two favorites, and probably the best two to learn because, again, you can do them anywhere, anytime. And when you get good at them, you can even do them in a business meeting if you have to. And the breathing one you can do real quick, even while you're talking to people. You can do 10 quick breaths and just chill yourself out. I did do a video on grounding and shielding and the basics of it. Go check that out. I want to say the breathing and the root one are in there, and we go into them. Now, I know a lot of people say get a crystal to hold and rub or go hug a tree. I'm not a big fan of those. And the reason is I believe a magician and a mage and a practitioner should master themselves and not require something outside them to be able to master themselves. So, I mean, if you're in New York and you need a tree, you're in a world of hurt. There are not a lot of trees around. And if you ain't got your crystal with you, well, that's a predicament as well. So my personal view is those would be the better ones because there's something, once you pick up the skill, you can do them any place, anytime. I hope that helps. Yeah, see, Peachy, that's the root one. That's one of the first ones I learned. And yeah, that's a good one because, again, you can do that any place, anytime. And that's one reason I'm not a. When the dragons taught me a system of magic that was not tools heavy, I fell in love with it. Which I think is why Norse sorcery got my attention so quickly. Because when I realized that Norse sorcery had little, if any, tools outside the runes, it was just like, this is magic on the go. You can do it anywhere. I love it. And so that's always been my turnoff for ceremonial magic too. Because if you look at the tools you need for ceremonial magic and how you have to craft them, the cost investment alone is crazy. Mine actually do too, Peachy. Ironically, I've used root grounding to warm my toes up before in the winter. Because I don't really get cold. I'm usually a person that runs very warm, which is why I don't like summer. Which reminds me, if you hear a sound, I do have the fan running because it's freaking hot today. Decided to go from like mid 60s to jump up to almost 90 degrees today. But my toes do get cold. So I have been known to use certain magical techniques and stuff to warm my feet up, like the grounding thing. Because, yeah, I don't like cold toes. No, actually, your skin warming or in some cases cooling is actually one of the big signs of energy movement. Though it is more often a warming sensation. So no, you're not crazy. Which is the one downside for me in magic, because in the summer, I really dread doing ritual work because that room just gets hot. There's a few entities I've worked with where they actually drop the temperature really low, and oh, I love when that happens. I have been known to stagger my work, so I do one ritual that heats the room up, and then I jump into a ritual that brings it down. I'm pathetic that way. No, I'm actually excited for you all to see the co-magician meditation that they gave me for the class, because we actually finished recording that this week, and I I tested it, which it left me just, I was floored by it. But I also had another 6 people run through it and test it. And 5 out of the 6 said they'd never had an experience like that. So I'm actually real excited because that was something the Dragons had me plug into the class. And it's like, I'm actually trying to see if I can get at least maybe the Guardian Dragon meditation they gave me and put that on YouTube. Just kind of it's like, because I mean, these things that they gave are so cool. And y'all know me. If you give me something cool, I want to show it off. It's like, look what I got. Oh, speaking of look what I got. That big project I got going. We are making progress on it. So here's what we're doing. Just so y'all have an idea of what's coming. No one has yet actually sat down, worked with the elemental rulers, and done any actual imagery specifically of them. So I am working with the artist who done the Dragon's Eye seal back here, the artistic one, and also done the redesign of my logo. And we're also working with the elemental rulers to actually get those dragons in an actual artwork done and put on canvas. And when I say working with the rulers, I mean it. So she doesn't just need my approval on whether or not the artwork's good. I actually take what she gives me, do an evocation right with the ruler, show them what it is, get their feedback, go back to the artist. She takes the dragon's feedback and makes any changes. So, and she has agreed to do all 9 of the elemental rulers through this process, which to me is amazing to have an artist willing to go jump through that many hoops to get these done. Because let's be honest, it's not like she can just send me the picture and be like, hey, what do you think? It's a little bit more complicated because I actually have to go in and, do the rituals. But we got the finalization of the first one today. So hopefully in a week or 2, I will have a canvas print of that particular piece of artwork to show you all. And what I'm also planning to do is do an in-depth video here on YouTube where I talk in-depth about one ruler at a time. Because I know you all have been wanting to know more about the rulers specifically, and I've been wanting to do those videos. And with this project going, now is the perfect time to do it. It's weird, Peachy. I've seen Coralegra be just real uber girly. But, well, you might still consider it girly. But I've seen her also take that real elegant lady, like lady of ladies appearance. I don't know if people consider that girly or not. I don't. I consider it elegant and ladylike. So I've seen her take on that aspect quite a bit. I would actually say, girly-wise, Terrafana comes off the girly girl. I mean, I work with her more. So she's definitely more they're both into cute stuff. They both go gaga over cute stuff all the time. But you also got to remember, we're getting their approval. So Coralegra's kind of got to approve what the image is. So if it's going to be whatever direction she goes in. And we are doing the draconic forms, not the human forms. because the human forms flip, flop, and change so much and so often, there's no way to lock them down. That would just complicate it. Torgray hit you with a staff? Well, yeah, so Bubbles, I do. I actually do. I don't necessarily prefer ceremonial magic, but I do have training in it. It's not my main cup of tea, but I can answer some questions on it, especially the LBRP if you want. Actually, at one point, I actually did a draconic version of the Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Pentagram. Got some really great results with it. I got a few students who still use it. I use it from time to time. I think people are more comfortable with it. It's more familiar. I don't know. Oh, Torger's, well, that's unlike Torger. How about that? Well, you must have been blocking something hard for him to go linebacker on you like that. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that does make sense because I've actually been in my sanctum, and there's a beach on my sanctum where I usually hang out. And without warning, he wanted to say hi. And he came in with such zeal that he sent a tidal wave over the whole sanctum. So yeah, that actually sounds like Torger. He likes to make an entrance when he says hi. So that makes sense. So yeah. For such a laid back dragon, he is extremely energetic at times. I'm convinced all that laying around and chilling is saving his energy up for antics like that. I'm convinced of it. I can kind of see your point there, Peachy. I mean, she does take that serpentine dragon form, but there's just this. You're right. It's a very girly-like aspect about her. Something about it's like every little scale, or if she had hair and clothing, everything would be on point. Even though she's in dragon form, it still gives off that aura that everything's on point, everything's perfect, and every little detail has been paid attention to. Does that make okay? Yeah, that makes sense. Good. So no, I get what you're saying, and yeah, I'm actually looking forward to hers. It's kind of a shame that they got me going in order because she'll be the fourth one we do. I'm looking forward to hers, and the one I'm actually a little worried about is the ruler of the fire dragons, because I don't know if anyone's worked with him or not, but that dude gives me so much shit, and he's always cracking jokes, and I'm just wondering what the experience will be like working with him to get his artwork done. You are right, Kane. It is a great time because, yeah, the equinox and the solstice, they're really if you wanted to say dragons have holidays, they don't really do holidays per se as we do. Those would be their holidays. Those would be their celebration days because that's when the energy cycles balance out. So yeah, today is a great day. Vernal equinoxes are great days and solstices to work with dragons. Hey, Hellcat, you made it. Good to see you, man. See, that sounds like him. That sounds like him. He's a smartass. He's a joker. But when it comes to what he can teach you, good God, he's awesome. And someone asked me to describe what he looks like in his humanoid form to me. And I always said he looked like an ambulance chasing lawyer. However, I recently realized why I think that. If you've ever seen Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, that is exactly the form he takes, accent and everything. Which also makes sense because he has me refer to him as Saul for short, because his name is Inglis Salor, and he just says, call me Saul. And it never clicked. It never clicked until the other day. I guess a new season of Better Call Saul dropped to Netflix finally. I don't have cable, so that's about the only thing I do is stream. And I saw the little advertisement picture, and I was like, duh, how did I miss that all this time? Yep, it's a celebration of the balance. And that's really what they do. For all those holidays, they focus on celebrating the balance. And it's a great time to work on pulling that balance into your life and finding anything that's out of balance as well. So it's a great time for working and celebration. No, it's a 7 p.m. We start at 7 now. But it's okay to be late. We don't mind. We occasionally get stuck here for an hour, two, sometimes 3.5. We get to talking. We just don't know when to go to bed. Not that I sleep much anyway. Coffee. Fear No Evil actually is the particular roast I'm drinking tonight. Actually, coffee does not affect my sleep, Anya. If I was to, I could down a pot of coffee and go to bed. I really can. It's more just shutting my mind up and getting bored. If I have something to do, I won't sleep. Because I actually had a doctor who wanted to prove a point to me about how long caffeine stays in the system, and I ruined his day because caffeine will stay in my system for about 25 minutes tops. And then he made some crack about me not being human, blah, blah, blah. Yep, they will do that. They will do that, Peachy. If they I've told people time and time again, dragons have, for as wise, regal as they may appear, they have a sense of humor. And when it comes to a sense of humor, there's a reason I say they remind me of both playful dogs and cats combined. It's because they do have that kind of whimsicalness about them. You're actually right on that, King. You are. Which I'm actually not, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese culture actually got that directly from the dragons themselves. You're watching me on your TV. Oh God, I just real. Yeah, you can stream YouTube on a TV, can't you? Shit, I never thought of that. Look at that, people. I'm on TV. Hi, Donald. I'll be honest, Donald. I had to double take on your name because I seriously saw Donald Duck first. I'm that immature. Wait, which one sits down and starts reading? Terrafana or English Salor? I don't think I've ever seen English sit down. I would pay to see that in some occasions. I could see Terrafana pulling up a chair and sitting down and be like, okay, you do what you're going to do. I'm going to read. See, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Love her to death, but she has totally got that. Okay, I've told you what to do. Now I'm going to read. Leave me alone. Well, I'm glad you was able to catch us, Donald. Yeah, I think it's safe to say we always have fun in here. Yeah, the differences in dragon lore between the East and West is very fascinating. And that's something I've spent a lot of time talking with different dragons about. Because I've said it before, but the draconic rulers will kind of have a form they prefer, but they're not locked into an Eastern or a Western style dragon. So a lot of the lore differences that we see in cultures around the world, the dragons have made it clear you have to look at the culture and the religions of those areas, because the dragons were working with them trying to help them. But the religions and cultures also affected the lore and the history, which is why European legends pretty much have dragons mostly as destructive creatures where knights are going out and, go slay the dragon. But then in Eastern culture, they very much hold a place of, would benevolence be the right word? Something like that. Tiamat's an interesting one to work with, Soap Bubbles. I never tell a person what to do or what not to do, but I will say I've found if you look at the elements that the dragons talk about, Tiamat is very much a chaos dragon. So if you get contact with her, which it sounds like you may have contacted her or at least a chaos dragon that knows her, She don't do things in small portions. If you ask her to help, she has no problem turning your life upside down, inside out, ripping it apart and rebuilding it to make it into the exact thing you want. And that process can be rough, but she is an awesome dragon to work with. I actually recently got Azzinoth Mason's Grimoire Tiamat, which, granted, it's a draconian path style book as opposed to more traditional dragon magic. But I've been reading through that, and I'm actually wanting to try a few of the rituals in it. It's been a while since I've actually worked with Tiamat. I'd actually like to reconnect with her. But yeah, that claw, I'd say you definitely got a hold of her. All the good ones are mad. It's times like that where I quote Jimmy Buffett. It's okay to be crazy. Just don't let it drive you nuts. More coffee. Y'all know what next Friday is? Anybody remember? It'll be the 1-year anniversary of the Working Dragon Mystic channel. And we got some pretty cool announcements coming that day to celebrate. Thank you, Hellcat and Donald. Okay, Hellcat, I'm seeing your name is William, and for man, that's confusing. It don't sound right. Just don't sound right. That's what you get when you know people too well off YouTube. And granted, I've never even met him. I just know him in a Discord server. There are more sigils coming. When I do get to doing the detailed videos on the rulers, I will be giving the sigils the rulers have given me to share. They're more of a stand-in sigil because they want you to get a part of working with them is getting a specific sigil that it's the sigil they give you, so it's kind of a direct dial. But we will be sharing those sigils in those videos. And I am looking at doing a video on an air or fire dragon as well, like we did the Torgra and the Expoon video. So there are more sigils coming. Actually, yes, I did. Well, I have to thank Anya. She actually knows what she's doing with Discord, and she helped me build it. So I am currently just figuring out the last little bits that I want to do. And I will post a general for people to get into Discord, because we're going to set it up so that there'll be a general area for anyone who wants to follow Working Dragon Mystic Discord. And for those of you who've been bugging me about Patreon, yes, I'm actually working on that. That is almost ready to launch. So there will be a Patreon section of the Discord. And we're not sure if we're going to attach a section of Discord for the school or not, because the school already has a comment section. And we're just not sure how that would function yet, but that's a possibility. But I would say, by next Friday, I'll be able to have a link for y'all to jump in there and start chatting. So, yeah. But no, we've been discussing how we're going to utilize that. First off, it's going to be a place where the community can gather, talk, ask questions. The Patreon section, we're definitely going to try and do some more live chats, voice chats, even organize some private streams where, just it'd be similar to this, where I might be teaching a class on and answering questions. Because there is a way that I can do like a private stream with certain people. So we're working out the fine details, but yeah, I should be able to get the general up and running fully by next Friday at the latest. So if you follow the Working Dragon Mystic private group on YouTube, as soon as it goes live, I'll put it there, as well as the business page. And of course, I will tell in the live streams here as soon as I get it up and running. Yeah. We are talking about having one for advertising. It's just, and we have discussed whether or not we want to do a Discord for each class. So we're just trying to figure out the logistics on that, Kane, because it would be handy. It really would. It'd be real handy. We're just trying to figure out the logistics on it. Because the website where the classes are, there's like a comment section where you can actually ask questions and stuff. And, well, my email is always available too. So, but if nothing else, I'm thinking about setting up a section for the school where you can message and leave a question. So it might just be the school, and you enter the class, the class and the topic, and ask your question. But that, like I said, we're trying to figure out the logistics there. But yeah, we want to do something like that. Problem is, I'm a caveman in a digital world, so we got to work with my lack of technical skills. So yeah, all that is in the works, and we're actually fleshing out the Patreon now. So actually, I might have them both live by next week, easy. Assuming we don't hit any roadblocks or bumps or anything like that. So, any other questions? I mean, we covered a lot already tonight. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up. Now, we should be doing the Magical Coffee Hour over on Twitch on Sunday. So unless something happens unexpectedly again, that will be happening Sunday over on Twitch, Working Dragon Mystic. Pop over and see me and Linda there. If something does happen, I'll still jump on here. All right, everybody. I think we'll actually call this one early tonight. I appreciate everyone coming out and joining in the chat. This has been great. And I do promise more sigils and stuff coming. I'm actually hoping to get a video on Dragon Magic versus Draconic Wicca very soon, possibly Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that. And I hope to see y'all Sunday for Magical Coffee Hour as well. And with that, I know you are, Peachy. We always love seeing you there. With that, I'll see y'all next week. Well, I guess I'll see you Sunday too. So y'all take it easy. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.